You have spent your entire life inside a lie so elegant that you mistook it for love, and no one told you that the lie was not hers. It was yours. Otto Weininger, in his monumental work, Sex and Character, warned us in the clearest and most brutal words. Man seeks in woman not a person, but the personification of his own ideal. Let that sink in for a moment. Not a partner, not a companion, not even a human being, but a mirror, a projection, an escape from his own unfinished becoming. The real tragedy of the male spirit is not that he is deceived by women, but that he deceives himself through women. You don't fall in love with her as she is, but with the version of yourself you imagine you will become once she chooses you. And you live in that trap today. Scrolling, chasing, performing, believing that if you just get better, richer, stronger, more high value, you will finally be worthy to stand beside her. But today I will reveal Weininger's 7 rules that no one had the courage to tell you. Rules that will free you from the prison you've built for yourself. Rules that will awaken the true man you were born to be. Weininger wrote, "The man who is dependent upon the woman for the valuation of his life has already betrayed himself." And there you are, brother, a slave not to her, but to the fantasy of who you think you'll become once she validates you. You may have built your body. You may have built your business, you may have built your reputation, but the moment you built it for her, you started building your own prison. And here is the genius of the game. She never even asked you to. You did it yourself. Weininger warned that woman, in his terms, is the negation of individuality. He wrote, "Woman does not strive toward personality or eternity. She is purely of the moment, of the senses, of life's stream, without reflection or responsibility. While you, man, are the bearer of meaning, the seeker of the eternal, the one called to rise beyond mere instinct. But instead you stoop down, not to meet her, but to lose yourself in her. You abandon your responsibility to become in exchange for the cheap pleasure of being desired. You dress it up as ambition. You lie to yourself and say you are on your mission. But deep down, if you are honest, you know you're still waiting. Waiting to be chosen. Waiting to be praised. Waiting for her to complete the story you refuse to finish on your own. Only the man who needs no woman is truly free," Weininger declared. And there it is, the knife through every illusion you've built your life around. Because you have been taught since birth that needing her is noble, that sacrificing for her is heroic, that winning her is the prize. But what if the real prize is the man you become when you no longer need anyone to validate your existence? What if the true masculine awakening is not getting her, but no longer needing her to prove you are already enough? I am not here to flatter you. I am not here to entertain you. I am here to wake you up. So let me ask you personally, what empire are you building that would still matter if no woman ever looked your way again? If you cannot answer that, then understand this. You have not been living. You have been auditioning. And Weininger already saw you coming. Rule 1. Recognize that you seek validation, not love. You wake up in the morning not as a man living his mission, but as a man scanning the horizon of his life for a single approving glance. The hunger follows you. It lurks behind every ambition, every compliment, every accomplishment. And if you are honest, you'll admit it. Your life has been a long, desperate performance for an audience you cannot even name. Otto Weininger, writing in the quiet madness of his 20s, saw this disease in men long before the digital age weaponized it. He wrote, "Woman is to man as the world is to the philosopher. She is the temptation to descend from the heights of pure thought to the abyss of distraction. And you, my brother, have been descending all your life. You have turned the divine act of becoming into a cheap theater of validation. You have traded the sacred silence of your own mind for the applause of strangers you'll never meet. And worst of all, you've convinced yourself it's noble." Rule 2. Understand that seeking approval is feminine energy, not masculine. What if I told you that this addiction to external approval is not masculine energy but feminine imitation? What if the man who seeks to be seen is not the creator, but the puppet? What if the real masculine spirit was never meant to perform but to build, to stand alone, to speak without needing to be heard? Weininger warned, "Woman lives in the reflected light of man. She possesses no will of her own. And here you are, a man reflecting the reflected light, living for likes, living for glances, living for approval. You have inverted the very nature you were born to embody. You were not made to shine because someone else approved of you. You were made to burn with a fire that needs no witness. Listen carefully. You do not become great by being chosen. You become great by choosing yourself, ruthlessly, unapologetically, without pause." Rule 3. Accept that no external validation is coming. Weininger did not hate women. His tragedy was that he understood men better than men understand themselves. He saw the sickness that creeps into every masculine heart, the fear of standing alone, the terror of building something that might never be recognized, the agony of realizing that the world might never clap for you. And so you compromise. You shrink, you chase, you become small enough to fit in someone else's story, rather than daring to live your own. But here's the brutal truth. The truth that will either free you or destroy you. The moment you need her to validate your existence, you have already surrendered your kingdom. Weininger wrote, "The tragedy of man is not that he loves woman, but that he loves the idea of being loved by her more than he loves himself. And that is why you're stuck. That is why you feel hollow. That is why no achievement satisfies you. Because you have built your entire life as a stage and you are still waiting for her to stand and clap." But here's the secret Weininger tried to whisper to us all. There is no audience. There is no applause. There is no validation coming. And when you finally realize that, you become free. Rule 4. Understand that your mission must exist independent of recognition. You become the man who builds. Not because he is seen, but because he must build. You become the man who speaks, not to be heard, but because the truth demands to be spoken. You become the man who chooses himself, crowns himself, and carries the unbearable weight of being his own authority. So I ask you again, brother, who are you when no one is watching? Because until you answer that, you are still performing. There is a reason most men today feel like something is missing. They don't have the words for it, but they feel it gnawing at their spirit every time they scroll through another feed, chasing the next hit of attention, the next distraction, the next illusion. Weininger saw it before it became an epidemic. He called it the feminine within the masculine, a silent disease where a man trades his calling to create for the comfort of consumption. He wrote, "The man who ceases to create becomes the slave of his senses." Rule 5. Choose the right suffering, the one that builds your throne. Look around you. The modern world is a temple to your senses. Screens, noise, dopamine on demand, 1,000 empty pleasures dressed as progress. You have been offered the whole world, but at the cost of your soul. You were not made to consume endlessly. You were made to build, to carry weight, to stand under pressure until you become something unbreakable. But no one tells you that. Instead, they hand you an endless menu of substitutes, likes instead of legacy, attention instead of achievement, validation instead of victory, and you take the bait. Because being chosen feels easier than choosing yourself. But here's the trap you refuse to face. Anything that comes too easily was never truly yours to begin with. Weininger saw this in every man who surrenders to comfort. He warned that the man who lives to be chosen has already abandoned his masculine destiny to carry the unbearable tension of standing alone. He wrote, "The man who will not endure solitude will forever live on borrowed meaning." And here you are, terrified of your own silence. You fill it with noise. You fill it with scrolling. You fill it with her. Because being alone with yourself feels unbearable. But that unbearable feeling is where your real work begins. You were not born to live in comfort. You were born to confront the weight of existence itself. You were born to stand on the edge of meaninglessness and dare to build meaning with your own two hands. Not because someone asked you to, not because someone will clap for you, but because you cannot bear to live one more day as a spectator in your own life. Rule 6. Take responsibility for creating your own meaning. Weininger's warning was not just about women, it was about men who refused to face themselves. He wrote, "Man becomes real only when he chooses to bear the burden of his own freedom." Let me say that again so it burns into your mind. You become real only when you bear the burden of your own freedom. No one is coming to save you. No woman is coming to complete you. No audience is coming to approve you. And that is the best news you will ever hear, because the moment you stop waiting to be chosen, the moment you stop performing, the moment you stop needing, you start living. So stop asking who will validate you. Start asking what you are willing to suffer for. Because your suffering will build your throne, or it will build your prison. And only you can choose which one it will be. Rule 7. Live for your own approval, not the approval of others. There comes a moment in every man's life when he must face the terrifying realization that no one owes him meaning. It will not be handed to you by your father. It will not be gifted to you by society. And it will certainly not be granted to you by the women you spent your life trying to impress. Weininger called this the crisis of becoming, a moment when a man must either step into the unbearable silence of self-creation or spend the rest of his life wearing masks designed by other people. He wrote, "All genuine manhood begins when the man tears the mask from his own face." And here you stand, brother, surrounded by masks. The mask of the nice guy, the mask of the high-value man, the mask of the performer, the provider, the protector. Masks you wear not because they fit, but because they feel safer than standing naked in your own unapproved existence. But Weininger's brutal message to men was simple. There is no safety. He wrote, "The greatest danger to a man's soul is not failure, but comfort in the face of cowardice. And this is why you are tired. Not because life is hard, but because you have been fighting battles that do not matter. You have built an identity based on being wanted, being needed, being chosen, and deep down you know it is hollow. Look at your life. What have you sacrificed your soul for? Who have you been trying to prove yourself to? What silent lie have you built your entire identity on?" Weininger warned that most men are not rejected by life. They reject themselves because standing on your own feels unbearable, because carrying the weight of your own unapproved existence feels like death. But here's what no one told you. It is death. The death of the false self, the death of the performer, the death of the boy waiting to be chosen, and what rises in its place is a man. Not because she clapped for you, not because society approved you, but because you finally chose yourself. Weininger was not offering comfort. He was offering confrontation. He dared men to face the brutal truth that no one is coming. Not God, not society, not women, not your friends, not your audience. And that is why you must rise. Not for them, not for applause, but for the man staring back at you in the mirror. You do not need to become more likable. You do not need to become more impressive. You do not need to become more acceptable. You need to become more you. So let me ask you one last time. And this time, answer with everything you have. What are you building that would still matter if no one ever saw it? Because until you answer that, you are still living someone else's life. You have spent years mistaking movement for meaning. You filled your schedule, your feed, your mind, yet you stand here emptier than ever. Otto Weininger tried to tell you that activity is not the same as purpose. He wrote, "The man who lives to be occupied fears the silence where his soul reveals itself." And now you know why you're tired. You have spent your life distracting yourself from yourself. You have called it hustle. You have called it purpose. But deep down you know you've been running from the unbearable question you've never dared to answer. Who am I when there is nothing left to perform? Weininger didn't tell men to hate women. He told men to stop hating themselves for not being enough. Because the real betrayal is not what she does to you. The real betrayal is what you do to yourself when you hand her the pen to write your story. And most men have already done it. You have been waiting for someone to come along and tell you that you're worthy. Someone to crown you. Someone to declare you finally high value. But here's what no one has the courage to tell you. There is no crown coming. The man who waits to be crowned never becomes a king. Weininger wrote, "It is the mark of the true man to create meaning when none is given." You've been waiting for permission to live, but life does not give permission. Life gives opportunity, and you give it meaning. So the real question is not what do you want, but what are you willing to suffer for? Because you will suffer either way. You will suffer if you chase applause that never comes. You will suffer if you stand alone in a silence that feels unbearable. But only one of those roads will make you a man. The other will make you a slave. So stop asking if she sees you. Stop asking if they approve. Start asking if you are willing to carry the weight of your own freedom. And here's the brutal truth Weininger dared to declare. He who carries his own meaning fears no rejection. You have been fearing rejection your whole life. Fearing failure. Fearing loneliness. Fearing being unseen. But the man who builds for eternity does not fear being unseen because he knows he is seen by himself. So build your empire, write your book, create your legacy, not for them, not for applause, but because you must, because you can do no less, because the weight of not becoming who you were born to be is heavier than the fear of being overlooked. And in that moment, when you stop performing, stop waiting, stop needing, you will realize you were never being played by them. You were being played by yourself. And brother, that is when the game ends and life begins.